Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Rain, and welcome to Stellar Scorpio, where we talk about all things astrology and tarot. Stellar Scorpio is my small business where I sell all things astrology and tarot based items. I will include the link to my website in the description down below. Feel free to check it out. Now, today's video is all about the 12th house perfection year. Your 12th house perfection year includes 11, 23, 35, 47, and so on. Now, I'm 24, so I just got done with my 12th house perfection year. While it's fresh on my mind, I wanted to make a video about it to help you guys. So in my 12th house perfection year, a lot happened. It was a lot. A lot of astrologers might express how the 12th house perfection year can be scary, at the very least, uncomfortable. This is true. There's a lot that happens within your 12th house perfection year that's just really overwhelming for some people. It definitely depends on your chart to see how good or bad of a year you'll have. Personally, the 12th house perfection year was uncomfortable for me for sure, but I don't think that it was that bad for me. Since it was still uncomfortable though, I thought I would dedicate a video to everything you need to know for your 12th house perfection year. Starting off strong with the main point of your 12th house perfection year is isolation. You're gonna feel really secluded. You're gonna want to withdraw from people, and honestly, this could be voluntary or involuntary because this is a time of introspection. For some people, this is one of the hardest parts because some people don't like to be alone. They don't like to be alone with their thoughts. They don't like to be alone in life. They just don't like to feel alone, and that's completely understandable. As I was saying, the 12th house perfection year causes you to isolate, and that's very difficult. Humans are social creatures. We like interacting with each other. But during a 12th house perfection year, throw that out the window because you're gonna be alone. Whether you feel that way or it's literal, you're gonna want to withdraw, basically. At least that's what happened in my experience. I absolutely could feel myself withdrawing. I didn't want to talk to anyone anymore. I didn't want to see anyone anymore. I didn't even want to be present on social media. Like, I literally didn't even want to engage in other people's content, like commenting or liking, because I didn't want to be perceived, which I think is a huge theme of a 12th house perfection year. Honestly, my social life genuinely became non-existent, which was so ironic because I was craving connection so much. But I self-sabotaged by cutting off or pushing everyone away from me so that I was alone. That's what I mean. It's either voluntary or involuntary, but it's usually because of your own doing. Now, with all this isolation, that brings us into my next point, which is your mental health. Your mental health is going to be highlighted at this time. That's an understatement, okay? Because you're so alone, you have no choice but to be alone with your thoughts. And if your headspace isn't a happy place to live in, that's gonna be no. You have no choice really but to address your mental health. How bad is your depression? How bad is your anxiety? How much is that influencing your life? And what do you want to do about it? Or not do about it? Because some of us like to suffer. This is a great time to prioritize your mental health and get the help that you're seeking, whether that's a therapist or getting put on medication or even getting a diagnosis. This is a great time to do that. You might even discover mental health issues you didn't even know you had, or maybe even mental health issues that run in your family. I know from my experience, I was able to realize what my biggest, most impactful wound was, which was abandonment. I realized how big it was and how much it was still influencing my life. Thankfully though, I was able to get to the root of it, figure out when it started, and heal through it, which was not an easy process. It was very painful, but I'm honestly so grateful to have felt through it and released it, because now whenever that wound comes up and gets triggered, I'm more aware of it and I know how to take care of myself. Speaking of, this is a great time for when your triggers come up to practice patience and compassion for yourself. This is really a great time to prioritize your emotions and honor them instead of running from them. Because side note, I think in your 12th house perfection year, you can't do that. The other thing that I was able to realize was my disorders and my disabilities. I was able to really understand that my depression was a disorder, that my anxiety was a disorder. I also was able to figure out that I was autistic and accept that, which is not an easy thing to do. For all of those things I just mentioned, I really believed that I could just grow out of it, that I could just do the work and somehow have it not affect me. I clearly had no idea what a disability was or disorder was. But with the 12th house perfection year, I was able to really come to terms with everything. And more importantly, figure out what those things meant for me, how they were impacting my life, and how I could move forward with those things in mind. Therefore, really creating a better quality of life. The other thing that I was able to address, which I think might come up depending on your chart, depending on the person, but if you have drug addictions or unhealthy relationships to substances, I think that's definitely going to come up during this time. At least it did with me. I realized that I had an unhealthy relationship to a certain kind of drug, and I was using it in a codependent kind of way, and during my 12th house perfection year, that was really made known to me, and I was able to stop. I realized how bad it was because it was making my anxiety and depression much worse. And through recognizing this, I was able to cut it off completely. And now I'm sober. Now, with all of the stuff coming up with your mental health, that brings me into the next point I have, which is what is hidden will come to the surface. The 12th house is all about what's hidden. It's about the veil. It's about the subconscious. It's about what you can't see. So everything that has been rooted in your subconscious will come to light. This means everything that you were not aware of that was influencing you will come up in order for you to address it. A lot of stuff might honestly catch you off guard. It might even be something that you realize after you realize it, how obvious it was to everybody else but you. It's honestly kind of like one big reality check. Now, with my experience, my gender really came up, which was something I never would have thought about. It honestly just kind of came up because somebody else in my life was questioning their own gender, and through our conversations, I was kind of like, oh, you have a point. Upon further reflection, I was able to realize that I, in fact, was not a woman because I always felt like I was cosplaying as one but could never fully be a woman correctly. After figuring out what non-binary meant, I was able to figure out that that's my gender, that's what I am. Now with that, it definitely caused me to spiral by releasing a lot of internalized homophobia, transphobia, and misogyny. Ultimately, white supremacy, because let's face it, that is the root of all of those issues. Another thing that came up for me personally was realizing how many times I was the bad guy. That's not easy. Now, the overall point of your 12th house perfection year is to let things go. Everything is coming up for you to feel it and release it because it is no longer serving you. It was everything that was holding you back. There's a major emphasis on clearing things out. And the whole point to clear things out is to make space for your first house perfection year. That's when you build everything back up. So to kind of summarize everything, your 12th house perfection year is mainly just you and your thoughts. I think one of the main reasons why nobody likes you when you're 23, because I was hearing that since I turned 20 and didn't understand it, is because you're purging all of these things, everyone around you unfortunately just experiences it. It's not pleasant. And there's nothing wrong with it either. I mean, you're going through the process of growing up, of closing out that full cycle on the wheel, because if you didn't know, there are 12 houses on the natal chart wheel, and the 12th house is the last one. So closing that out is closing out your entire experience going around the wheel. Lastly, this is just something I have never seen an astrologer talk about, or anyone for that matter, and I really need to address it because it made me feel crazy during my 12th house perfection year, and I just want to give y'all a heads up in case you experience the same thing. What I'm talking about now is deja vu. It's different. So when I normally feel deja vu, I experience it in the sense of I have a dream or a vision, whatever, and then whenever it happens, it's like after it happens, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just had deja vu. That's crazy. I can recognize that it's deja vu, right? During my 12th house perfection year and my 12th house perfection year only, whenever I would have deja vu and I'd experience it, I would think to myself, wait a minute, I thought this already happened. Why is this happening again? I didn't realize that it was deja vu. Like your subconscious and your conscious are like intertwining. I know everybody experiences deja vu differently because when I had conversations with other people who had 12th house placements natally, they said that's how they experienced deja vu. As someone with no 12th house placements, I was like, that's not me. That's not how I experience it. This is how y'all experience it all the time. That's insane. No wonder y'all are so like floaty and feel crazy. I don't blame y'all. With all that being said, that's what I got for your 12th house perfection year. It's a lot. It's hard. I think the best advice that I could really give you is to go with the flow. If you try and reject what's happening to you, it's gonna make it more difficult. I'd arguably say the same thing for your Saturn return. I haven't experienced that yet, but I've heard that. Your 12th house perfection year might be messy, it might be difficult, it might be emotionally overwhelming. You just gotta accept what's happening. Just accept the situation and trust that you'll be okay. Like I said, the most important thing is to have patience and compassion with yourself during this time. It's gonna be difficult and you're going to feel difficult to live with. But just remember, you're human, you're growing, and growing is hard. Especially when you're in that part of growing where you're purging, releasing all that stuff is hard and it's painful. It's not easy. I hope this helps. I hope this educated you a little bit. If you didn't know, I've been studying astrology for like 3 to 4 years now, and I just thought that I would share my knowledge for those of you entering your 12th house perfection year. I'm going to be posting videos every Friday. They're going to alternate between astrology and tarot specific videos, so make sure you subscribe to keep up with that. Give this video a thumbs up if you learned anything. Let me know down below in the comments if you're approaching your 12th house perfection year. If so, what age? Or if you've already experienced your 12th house perfection year and want to share your experience. That's all I have for you guys. Happy healing.